Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Hi everybody, and I welcome you to the show. I don't know whether to say good morning or good afternoon because I never know where or when you're viewing the Court of Public Opinion. Here from the garage, I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Peter Clayton's behind the camera. Welcome wherever you are, as I say, and whatever time of day you're having a look at the show. Don't forget our live streaming program on Friday. That's between 9 o'clock and 12, where you can call me. We've got guests. We've got a whole lot of interesting stuff upcoming. It's like a radio station. It really is. It has all the elements of a radio station, but at the moment it's only live for 3 hours a day, but you can tune in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 9 o'clock if you want to. And every Friday we put the 3-hour live program up in the cloud. Don't ask me to explain this because I'm not even sure I understand it, but they put it up in the cloud, and it goes on to a loop with all of the other Friday shows, so it's just getting added to all the time. Heaven knows where it'll lead. I still find it hard to understand that up there's a thing called a cloud, and that the climate activists haven't decided that cloud is a big problem and it's going to fall on the earth, and it's give them time. Give them time. They'll come around to it. Pete, you said at the end of yesterday's program that you were surprised more people hadn't made more of the population of Australia having grown by how much?
Over 500,000.
Half a million people, what, in 12 months?
Yes.
Yeah, well, we don't have a population policy, which is part of the problem. And we've got a housing problem and all of the other problems associated with a growing population. And whether that population ends up where they are best suited for employment and housing, I don't know. But, you know, if they sort out a place in regional Australia, it probably would be better, but you can't go and make people go and live somewhere they don't want to live. They'll probably gravitate towards the cities, the big cities, which is probably where you don't want more people. Anyway. Asking these people in Canberra to have a policy, a well thought out policy, would be very silly, I would think. An Adelaide University study came up with this. I love academics. Well, sort of. They come up with stuff that you sort of wonder why they're looking at that and who's paying for it. They've come up with this. The stress of renting. The stress of renting a property, a house, a flat, a room, a unit, is worse than being unemployed, going through a divorce, or quitting the smoking habit. Well, my first reaction was, what rot? What absolute rubbish. How could renting an apartment be stressful? And then I thought to myself, what sort of wusses are we breeding? Renting a home is too stressful? My God, what have we come to? Anyway, I don't solve these problems, I just report them to you. I love this one too. You remember the space project? It was a NASA project, 7 years in the making. They took off 7 and a bit years ago, headed for outer space, millions of light years away. They were going to rendezvous with not a comet, an asteroid. And they believed that this asteroid was made up of the very beginnings of life here on Earth. How they would know that from this distance, God knows. It's all amazing. But that's just the beginning of it. What happened then was more amazing. Quite literally out of this world amazing. They managed to get this spacecraft to rendezvous with this tiny little, relatively small lump of rock and bump into it, knock a bit of the surface up in the air where it was captured in a captured then sealed in a container, and then in its space loop or orbit would bring it back to Earth. And they knew exactly where it was going to land, and goodness me, it did exactly what it was supposed to do, when it was supposed to do it precisely. Totally, totally brilliant. You think of all of that and then you wonder why they can't make the trains run on time. But anyway, that's another story. It wasn't so much the amazing challenge and success of that space mission. It was, what caught my ear was one of the scientists. He was an astrophysicist. He was employed by NASA. And he, in raptures, was talking about for the first time what they had found when they opened that container. He was talking about carbon. Carbon, he said. Carbon, the central element of life. And we found it on that asteroid. The very building block upon which our very existence is based, he said. So significant was this finding. And yet, we have allowed these climate idiots to demonize carbon. Doesn't matter whether you call it, carbon comes in various forms. Of course, carbon probably came from forests that disappeared, went into the ground. They became coal. Later they became oil. I think carbon probably later, beyond that time, became diamonds. Carbon. It is not the evil that these damn people wish to tell us. But here was this scientist in raptures in his own world, completely oblivious as to the awful name that carbon has been given by these, I don't know what you'd call them, activists, I guess, pure and simple. What else is around? Carbon. No, I've done carbon. China. China's making more cars, apparently, than the rest of the world combined. That's an interesting thought. I can believe that. You remember that story that we did? Pete, is it still around? The one with the acres and acres of electric cars parked out in the middle of nowhere?
Yes.
All registered?
I'm not sure whether I've still got it.
Oh, there's no point really in running it again, because people can go and find it if they want to. But it's a great story. It's just we did put it on Facebook the other day. Tens of thousands of electric cars made, registered and parked in a field, acres and acres and acres and acres of them. Because all they want to do is to register them, be able to say statistically that they've got all of these electric cars, which must mean they're terribly popular because they've been made and registered. No.
Something very interesting from the RAA.
Yeah.
I was talking to them about electric cars, and he said he's come across people, I was talking about travelling interstate. Yeah. People carrying a trailer.
Yes.
With a generator.
Oh, yeah. Is that a diesel generator?
Oh, yeah. They're carrying a trailer with a diesel generator to recharge their electric car.
Yeah, it's bizarre. But as we were talking about at the dining room table on Friday last, the idea that if you had more electric cars let's say probably more than half the cars on the road were electric, and they were plugging into the grid would collapse. Nothing would work. But you see, they don't think it through. They don't think it through, like, where are the batteries going to go? How are you going to recycle them? Are people going to be able to afford to pay $40,000 for a new battery for their car? I doubt it. Anyway, we'll just go through this phase, as we do tend to go through phases, lots of them. I was thinking the other night about this guy who wanted me, years and years ago when I'd sold my company, he wanted me to invest in these flotation studios. This was going to be the next big thing. People are stressed. They need to relax. And this is the most wonderful relaxation. And I investigated it, and, you know, it was like a great big chamber. Maybe too coffin-like for me, but it was a great big chamber, and you wore nothing, or you wore a swimming costume, and you got into this thing. It was very, very salty water, brine almost, and you could, like the Dead Sea, you could float on the surface without any difficulty. And it was the same temperature, it was body temperature, 98 degrees or something. So you were just floating there almost as if you were floating in thin air, and you just stayed in there for half an hour, and it was the most restful, beautiful relaxation you could possibly have. It was so good for you. And this guy was totally convinced that this was going to be, you know, a multi-billion-dollar business, and, you know, you've heard it all probably before, get in on the ground floor and be part of this, and we're going to franchise it, and we're going to do this. You know, that came and went within about 6 months. I don't know what went wrong. I suppose people didn't want to get into somebody else's bathwater. I suppose people didn't like being put in something where the lid comes down and you're in there and it's black. It may be very restful, but it could also be very claustrophobic. Anyway, the world is full of these ideas that people come up with. I must admit, the electric car thing is bigger than that, clearly. But the principle is the same. Tread carefully. It seems we have a handful of asylum seekers who came from, what would it have been, Manus Island, I guess, to mainland Papua New Guinea. Now, there was some sort of agreement to house them at our expense, because we didn't want them to come here to Australia, but we'd house them on PNG at our expense for a period of time. And then it gets all blurry. It seems we haven't paid our bill. And according to the PNG immigration guy, it's tens of millions of dollars we owe them. Tens of millions of dollars. Papua New Guinea have been jerking us off for years, by the way. So I am in no way surprised to hear any of this. But let me try to understand how this works. These guys leave Pakistan, helped by people smugglers. They become asylum seekers. They usually tear up their papers. People smugglers are there helping them all along the line for a fee. There's the boat ride, there's the whole disaster. But it's their choice. They got on the boat. They wanted to get on the boat. We pick them up somehow, and we keep them on Manus Island rather than bring them to the mainland, because that's taking the sugar off the table for the people smugglers. And then from Manus they go to PNG. And now we have to move them to Australia, apparently, and look after them and all their needs. Now, the media hasn't made a big thing of this. I mean, I'd like to make a big thing of this. Australia has to bring them here, look after their needs indefinitely, I gather. I mean, are we raving mad? Why don't we just send them back to Pakistan? Why is it our responsibility? I mean, clearly it isn't, quite frankly. Now, have you received your power bill recently? Huh? I had to write some cheques the other day. Just remember that we are paying a fortune because of the policies of this Labour government and its pursuit of renewables. And no, we didn't get the $275 saving promised by Anthony Albanese, but we did get the referendum he promised us. But of course the Chinese and the Indians are enjoying the benefits of our fine quality cheap coal, which generates their electricity economically, but we don't get that same benefit. And you know what? You know, we cop it sweet. I would just love to know why. I really would. We are the most submissive people, apathetic. We should be in high dudgeon about that. How dare this government come up with a policy that makes cost of living almost impossible, and yet we struggle and they survive. Hell's bells. Anyway, happy birthday if you're having a birthday. Happy wedding anniversary. I'll leave you with some dates. It's the 17th, isn't it, Pete?
Yep.
The 17th. Evel Knievel. I remember talking to him. He was interesting. Evel Knievel. You know, he was the guy, the motorcyclist who leapt the Grand Canyon, I think, from memory. Used to leap things. But in America, if you've got a particular, I don't know, forte, a gimmick, you can make a lot of money. And he certainly did. Anyway, he was born on this day in 1938 in Butte, Montana. What else? 1945, Ava Gardner married Artie Shaw. They divorced October 24, 1946, so they were married barely a year. Artie Shaw was a band leader. Ava Gardner went on to marry Frank Sinatra. Ava Gardner was always Frank Sinatra's love of his life, I believe. The Beatles make their British TV debut in 1962. The world premiere of Mike Todd, who went on to marry Elizabeth Taylor, of course. Mike Todd's movie Around the World in 80 Days premiered in New York City. The film cost $6 million to make. 1956. A lot of money back in those days. Well, I mean, depending on who you are, it's a lot of money these days. What else? Notorious US gangster Al Capone gets an 11-year prison sentence for income tax evasion, 1931. They could only get him on that, apparently. Mass murderer and the rest. Juan Perón becomes dictator of Argentina in 1945 on this day. Stays there for quite a while as well. Jacqueline Kennedy announces that she would marry the Greek shipping tycoon Aristotle Onassis. They were married 3 days later, 1968. Apparently she had this great big manifest of things that she would do and when she would do them and how she would do them, and if he didn't agree to it, it was all off. I don't know whether that's myth or not. Gary Puckett Gary Puckett was born in Minnesota in 1942, and it was the Union Gap, wasn't it,
Yes,
Pete?
yes.
The Union Gap. Now, what was their biggest hit?
Young Girl.
Young Girl! Can you imagine these days if you tried to record a song like that? You wouldn't get very far. But he did some other work too, didn't he?
Yes, he had some good songs.
Yeah, he did have some good songs. Gary Puckett and the Union Gap. Rita Hayworth was born in New York, 1918. Candid Camera premiered on ADS 7 here in Adelaide in 1961. Arthur Miller, who was married to Marilyn Monroe, I think. Arthur Miller, born in New York City, dramatist best known for his Death of a Salesman, born 1915. What Arthur Miller and Marilyn Monroe would have in common, I have no idea. Frédéric Chopin died in 1849. He was only 39 years old. Age first published 1854. I will get some glasses, I promise. 1854. Anwar Sadat succeeded Nasser as president of Egypt in 1970. The first edition of Adelaide Tonight on NWS 9, 1959. RCA, the Record Corporation of America, was founded in 1919. On my dining room table, I must tell you, I have a very old RCA microphone, which goes all the way back. I don't know, it must have been a ribbon microphone. Wouldn't have been a dynamic microphone, would it? But it's a lovely thing to look at. It was a work of art. And there across the bottom emblazoned is RCA, Record Corporation of America. Jane Mansfield gave birth to a 8-pound, 7-ounce son in Los Angeles, her fifth child, 1965. And there we will leave it. Look, have a lovely day. Thank you very much for being with us here in the Court of Public Opinion in the garage. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux, and Peter Clayton and I will be back tomorrow. Believe in yourself, and goodbye for now.
Kept going on, and I kept hearing all these thousands of rounds of gun shooting, automatic, single. And sometimes it was really close, sometimes it was far. It like moved from one area to another. That made me understand that it's not one class of terrorists. It's much more, because they're here and they're there and they're there and they're there, and they could be everywhere. Please come. We're burning. They're burning a house. We're here. We hear them. We hear them. They're here. They're trying to break down my door. They're on the roof. They're shooting. Come, save us. The only thing I'm thinking of, let's get out of here. Let's be evacuated.
Let's stay alive.
Let's stay alive. Bullets all over the place.
In southern Israel, a few kilometres from the border of Gaza, is a kibbutz called Be'eri. About 1,200 people lived here. At least 108 are now dead. 10% of the community massacred. Galit Carbone was one of them. The 66-year-old Australian-born woman was a mother, grandmother, sister and aunt. Her brother Danny spoke with us, supported by daughter Mika and son Roe. He agreed to recount the horror that unfolded in his community of Be'eri on Saturday morning, October 7. In shocking detail, Danny relives the day minute by minute, hour by hour. The day that would change his life and Israel forever.
When did you know that there was something really wrong on Saturday?
About 7 o'clock. After I went on my bike ride, like every Saturday. And then started the rockets in the air. It was like fireworks, really. It started to go really louder and louder. And then there was, we don't have a siren back there. We have a code, Tseva Adom, red color, Tseva Adom, which means you gotta go into your safety rooms or whatever. There's an attack.
Yeah.
And you have like
15 seconds. We don't have 15 seconds. We've got 10, but it says 15.
You're so close to Gaza.
Yeah. I was just about to keep going. I thought, okay, before the red alert, I thought I'll keep going. Okay, it's going to end up in a second. And little I knew that at the gate of the kibbutz, the terrorists were about to reach there, and I was about 300-400 meters from there, and I returned because of the red alert, and I returned to my home. So that's, thank you God.
Thank God.
For one. And then 15 minutes after, I heard the shooting from my window. It was about 150-200 meters from my house. And then at that moment I knew something is wrong. It's about 7 o'clock, I think, yeah. Then 7:15, 7:30, I got into my safety room and locked the door. And I talked to you about what that meant to me, to lock the door. Locking the iron door behind me, it meant crossing a red line that was never there before, for me at least. That means if I've got to lock myself into a safety room because there's shooting inside my house, something is wrong. And there and then I started to feel that something is really wrong and we won't be the same. Later on I knew and I was sure that there's life before 10-7 and life after 10-7, or as we say in Israel, 7-10, but we go with the American way. Anyway, 7th of October, it's the break line, it's the deadline, it's something that will make us understand that we've got our different lives, and we'll talk about it after, what really made the change.
So tell me what happened next. So you locked yourself in the room, and then what did you hear?
Okay, I locked myself in the room. I think everyone's feelings were that it's a local attack and it will end in an hour, a couple of hours, by meaning that we annihilate everyone, and that was it, you know. But it kept going on, and I kept hearing all these thousands of rounds of gun shooting, automatic, single, and sometimes it was really close, sometimes it was far. It like moved from one area to another. That made me understand that it's not one class of terrorists, it's much more, because they're here and they're there and they're there and they're there, and they could be everywhere. They were everywhere. Apparently afterwards, as we said before, there were a few hundred there. And I started texting, letting everyone, I opened the group, I said, please guys, please report what's happening. How are you? Where are you? What's your position? What's your situation? Are you locked? Are you safe? Unfortunately, I didn't bring any water or food inside. I didn't bring a bucket to pee, and afterwards I couldn't resist, and I opened the door and I listened to see if there's someone there, even though I locked my door. And I had a pee. I got a bag of some candy. I got a bottle opener. I got a bottle of wine, and I got a bucket so I can pee, and I came back and locked my door. That was in the middle of the day, and it kept going, and rounds and rounds, and in the local text messaging, please come, we're burning, they're burning a house, we hear them, they're here, they're trying to break down my door, they're on the roof, they're shooting, come, save us. Please save what's her name. She hasn't been in touch with anyone for the last hour. All the time. It's all there. It's all there in the phone.
It must have felt like Armageddon.
It was Armageddon. And I thought, okay, it must end. The army surely will be here. We are on 4.5 k's from the border. Surely, little we knew that they just broke in with dozers and ran it with some pickup trucks. And it's a f***ing pickup a army that's killing us, you know. And it just seems really dark, you know. And then people say there's no electricity, and then if there's no electricity, you can't charge your phone. If you can't charge your phone, you can't report where you are.
Danny described the final conversation he had with his older sister as her home came under attack.
12:09 midday, she rings me and she's whispering. And she says, I hear them here in the house and I can't close the door properly. And I'm trying to be biff and try to be really cool. And I said, okay, we'll whisper and you try and hold the handle back towards you. And I keep encouraging her a little bit more. And then we say, okay, I'll cut down all the phone conversation so no one can hear us. And that was the end. I didn't hear anything from her afterwards, and neither her kids. And I presume 12:30 it was all over. We didn't, in the group, we didn't really do much about it because we couldn't leave our places. I couldn't just go out and see how's my sister going because there's shooting everywhere. It's really, as I said, Armageddon, end of the world, and we just wait for the army. Please come, army, you know. It's the strongest army in the Middle East, in the world, really, you know. It's the Israeli defense. And nothing happens. And they arrived, I think, around 3 o'clock, 3 p.m. Started 7 a.m. Apparently afterwards we understood that there were bombs all over the gate where the army was supposed to come in, and there were troops there that wanted to avoid them from coming in. And little we knew that so many kibbutzniks were killed already by then. Then just the hours go by and you keep hearing all the text messaging from the local net, and you say, what the f***, can't do anything about it. You're locked in here. Everyone is locked. No one can do anything. And around 8:30 or so, I hear the army downstairs. I open and I see, and anyway, they come up to my stairs. I live on the second floor, which is another blessing because they had too much to do on the ground floor.
Plenty of targets.
So they never bothered going up second floor. So thanks again. Okay. And I open the door and they come in with their rifles right in front of me, just to make sure that I'm not a terrorist. And they cleared the house and they said, okay, come with us. And then another step of horror started because they're getting us all together I think we were about 20 or 25 people they gathered all over the place, kids, elderlies on wheelchairs, everything. And the special unit soldiers were around us. And they said, okay, walk, okay, stop, okay, walk, okay, stop. And all the time we got the background, there's fighting about 100, 200 meters behind us. Bullets all over the place. You hear you hear
grenades.
I heard some grenades as well. Yeah.
This is the police fighting with the terrorists at this point.
The army.
The
army against the terrorists because there were
Special
terrorists
forces
all
of the
over.
army.
And we saw dead bodies on the road, but then they moved us around so the kids won't have to go through that. And eventually we got to the entrance to the kibbutz, which was all shattered. And then we saw hundreds and hundreds of troops there with cars, ambulances, armed cars, ambis, everything, you know. And
it's a beautiful community, right?
It is.
When you finally got out, what did it look like? Can you describe?
Everything's shattered. Everything's shattered. Everything was burnt. Houses were burnt, and I saw the fire from my window. It was about 2 houses from me. Everything's burnt. Afterwards, from the stories that people jumped from the second story with their kids, you know, there's some horrific and heroic stories all over the place which just keep coming out. But you walk on the footpath or on the road and you see all the shells there from the guns. What you heard a few hours ago, that the gunfight was just underneath your window. And you think, okay, I'm safe now. I'm safe now.
Danny is now clinging on to his kids. There were times, he admits, where he didn't know if he would see them again, leaving voice messages from his safe room as his sister, friends and neighbours were slaughtered.
This is Dad talking to us. Still shooting. I'm in the safety place.
זה כל פעם עובר לוקיישן, זה היה בדרום מזרח של הקיבוץ, עבר מערבה ועכשיו זה צפון מערב ממני. זה כבר מעל שעתיים, לדעתי,
It's over 2 hours right now.
עד שלא יחזלשו, ייקח עוד הרבה, וואי, את שומעת היריות? עדיין ייקח זמן עד שיחזלשו לדעתי.
Wow. Do you want to translate it? Shall I translate it?
What were you saying in that?
I said a few things. I said that, listen, Chush, that's my nickname for Chush. Her name is Mika, but I called her Chush. Listen, Chush.
I have no nickname.
You're just Matoki, sweetie.
I'm the favorite.
I said, listen, Chush, you can hear the background, the battle's still going, and it just moves from one area to another, what we talked about in the interview. It goes now to southeast or southwest, and it's moving northwise. And it was really, then you heard all the rounds that going, and it was really close. And I don't know why I wanted to hear it. Maybe it was a mistake, but I just felt like, I don't know, maybe it was a mistake. I don't know. But as I say, it is what it is. I did it, and that's just one. There's probably about 10 of them like that.
Yeah.
At least 10.
And the gunshots just keep
Yeah,
going.
yeah.
Keep
the
going
rounds all over
for
the
hours.
place. The rounds all over
Hours.
the place. Every now and then you think about my sister. Where is she? She's been kidnapped. She's lying dead in her house. You do think about it. But
what ended up happening? I mean, what do you know about what happened to your sister? What have you been able to
that's a good
find
question,
out?
Ash, because I did ask the guy that told me officially that they found her body and identified it. And I said, the first question was, where was she found? It really intrigued me. Where was she found? Did she battle in her house? Did they drag her? Did they try and take her to Gaza? What? Where? And I still up to now don't know any to those questions, any answer to those questions. I presume in a few days, in a few weeks, I will get some answers, but I'm not holding my breath on it.
What was her spirit like? Was she the type of woman that you think would have sort of tried to fight? Or
She's sick. She's got asthma and all kinds of illnesses. She couldn't resist. She couldn't resist whatsoever. That's why I find it a little bit weird that she wasn't found in the house. So I thought, okay, maybe they left her and she escaped them and tried to hide in the bushes, trenches. I don't know.
because her body was found outside
the house, but I don't know where. So my fantasy, vivid imagination takes me all kinds of places. But at one stage I thought, okay, I need to know. And the second I said, doesn't really matter, you know.
This is what is so horrifying about what they've done. You just said that she wouldn't have been able to resist.
Nah, not
so there
whatsoever.
It was just so barbaric.
It was.
This isn't war. This is something else. It's just pure evil. I mean, targeting women and children and people who are defenseless.
Absolutely.
You know, it's out of the game's rules. It's out of it. You know, it's something you don't do.
Let's say if you have
Old
war,
women,
there's
babies,
rules.
Kids. It's horrifying.
Someone said that my neighbor and his daughter had bullets in the head, both of them. And that fucking shows, you know.
They hang a baby with a rope outside of the door. I can't say it. It's...
In Berry?
Yeah.
They hung a baby with the rope.
Yeah,
That's
after they killed it.
That's something I didn't know, really. Seriously, I didn't know that. I'm shocked. As much as I can be shocked, you know.
Every time you think you've heard a
Exactly.
story that's just...
I didn't want to say it until now, but I think it's really important to say it.
That's
as much
why
as
Ashley and
it's tough
Jimmy's,
to say.
That's why they're here.
That's what they do to us. They did to us in the last 3 days.
There
Yeah.
was no moment in history. What can you compare this to?
I'm afraid to say this word, but maybe the Holocaust or something.
Someone was comparing to Holocaust or to Babi Yar or to, I don't know.
They just killed us for who we are, for Jewish people live in Israel. That's the reason, the main reason they killed us. They killed all our loved ones just because they're Jewish and they live in Israel.
What do you want people to know about your aunt, and what do you want people to know about your sister?
She was a lovely woman, kind woman.
She loved us.
She loved us so much, and their kids.
She
And
was
we'll
my
be
sister.
strong. We
See?
will be strong for our kids and for our grandsons. This is our duty right now.
Yeah, she
To
left
stay strong.
behind 3 kids and 1, 2, 3.
I can
4.
comfort for one thing that she saw her 3 kids get married and bring children to this world, and she saw her grandchildren.
Yeah.
What was your childhood like in Australia, and how did you end up in Israel together?
Wow.
It's a good question.
It's a very good question. Don't kill me if I won't be able to answer, Ash. But I went to first grade at Rose Bay. Rose Bay, yeah. I remember my teacher, everything. I remember living in Bondi. We lived in Bondi, Palm Street. Don't remember the number. I remember good memories. And we both didn't really understand why the fuck are they taking us to somewhere that it's Arabs and desert. What's Israel in 1968? It's nothing. It's 1 year after the 6-Day War. Which, by the way, lots of South Africans, Americans, English, Australians made the move to Israel. It was really the Zionist movement 1 year after the 6-Day War. It was a big victory, and all the Jews were proud, and all the Zionists made the move to Israel. So that was part of it. And I've got good memories from the kibbutz, really have. Yeah, I have a good memory. I decided to stop answering my folks in English because I wanted to learn Hebrew and I didn't want to be different. So very quickly I learned Hebrew. As you hear, my English isn't really well because I don't practice it so much. But but then afterwards I came back. I knew always Australia's home for me.
You're both obviously very so proud that you decided to get some tattoos to prove it.
Yay!
Kangaroo sign.
The kangaroos. We'll have to get you to show us properly because that is very impressive.
Yeah, it's their idea, by the way.
That is very
I
impressive.
thought it's very funny because we have these signs in Israel for camels and cows.
Yeah.
In Australia, we have the kangaroos, and we're like, okay.
Yeah,
The best.
it's their idea, and
Really good.
I love it. I love it.
Where does it leave you all in terms of, I mean, you were living so close to Gaza. Where does it leave you now when you think about what's ahead of you? It feels like Israel has such a big fight ahead of it now that this is really existential. I mean, what do you want Australia, what do you want the world to know about what's happening in Israel right now?
Okay, I'll start.
Yeah.
I think that I think the most of the Israeli citizens would like to have peace with our neighbors. I remember as a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old, we used to go take a car and go to the Gaza Strip for Saturday, go to the Cane Market, go have hummus, go to the beach. It was lovely. I want that again. That's what I want. I want us to have an open border or no border at all, that they can come in, no terrorism, no bomb attacks, no nothing. and we'll go and fill the economy with all what, go to the restaurants, buy their stuff, as it was 50 years ago, 40 years ago. 50,
There's
60.
an old saying that the Prime Minister of Israel said like 40 years ago, Golda
was during the Yom Kippur War.
Yeah, 40, 50 years ago, she said, when our enemies will put down their weapons, there will be no war. When Israel will put down the weapons, there will be no Israel. And I think it tells the whole story.
I'm not a lefty, but I raised my kids to love, really, not to hate. Even when we used to go to football matches, I said, cheer for your team, don't
curse
rubbish the other team. That's the basic, I think.
The moment that you guys saw each other, tell me, what was that like?
It was pretty emotional.
He came to the hotel today and I saw him at the lobby, and it was the second time I broke down. Yesterday I broke down with a friend of mine that lost his own son, his wife's son, and wife and 2 kids. So he lost 5 persons of his family. So I fell into his arms and we cuddled and we broke down. And today I broke down when Roy came. And tonight, after we left the hotel, I went to visit a friend of mine that got his leg chopped off from the knee, and he lost his wife and one of his sons. And it's just, you go from one disaster to another. And then you get here and you see Chushi and you break down again. And it was the 3rd time I broke down in the last 2 days. And still I'm trying to be as beef as I am. But I'm really a softie. I'm not really beef. I'm just putting on a show when I need to.
Like this,
what have the tears been for?
Don't know. It just came.
Maybe relief. It's hard as
I don't know.
Sound to say, relief to see my dad. Like, I don't know.
Maybe the miracle that we're together.
I told you I just want to do this to feel him, to know that he's here and he's alive, to physically feel him.
Yeah. I said to them, guys, I can't wait till I sniff you. I wanted to sniff you.
Such a relief, right?
It is such a relief. It's a uniting after after something horrifying that could have ended differently. Easily could have ended differently. So easily. From what you heard in the last 30 minutes or whatever, it could have ended in any other way but this way. Yeah. There could have been so many scenarios.
And I'm sure it's just so many emotions all at once, because it's the relief, but then you've got so much grief that you've still got to work through.
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't even know what's coming.
No. And you don't know what's next.
No,
There's so much unknown.
The world should know that 9.2 million people will be scarred forever. After these few days, will be scarred forever. True. Kids, women,
for generations.
True.
It will change Israel.
Oh yeah,
forever.
Absolutely.
Forever.
Like it changed me, it changed them, it changed everyone. There's everyone in Israel that's got related or knows someone that's related to someone from Be'eri, Niroz, Kfar Aza, Sderot, or whatever. All the Otef Aza. And Israel is really a small community and really tight, even though there's big differences political way, right and left.
Yeah.
This is the times when we come together.
Try to unite.
Yeah. Being together, it's the only way we can get out of this disaster.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.